as we break down that finally released issues page for the Harris campaign. And what you'll finally actually look is that you have a pretty, I don't want to say a moderate point of view, but kind of a nothing point of view for a lot of these. A very benign, non-controversial, even I went to the most controversial sections, you think abortion rights, those kind of things. They're not as hardcore as maybe she is been on the record before, or maybe been on the record in some of her even her campaign stops. And this will raise some eyebrows, and they even brought this up to the good Senator Bernie Sanders.
That's right. So Kristen Welker at NBC News had Senator Bernie Sanders on Meet the Press over the weekend on her Sunday show and asked him about kind of the shift in the public-facing persona and opinions and ideals of Vice President Harris, because that's one of the main criticisms she's gotten about how far left she was as a senator and even running for president in 2020 with the fracking ban, the Medicare for All, and things that she has since backtracked on and even famously did so and was pushed a little bit by Dana Bash in the CNN interview. But those positions have changed, but she said her values have not. So Kristen Welker decided to ask about it, and here was Bernie Sanders' response. Let's go ahead and play bite one.
She has previously supported Medicare for All. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. My own view is slightly different. I think that in America today, there are a lot of people, rural people, working class people, who no longer believe that the United States Congress and government represents their interests, too dominated by big money interests.
Okay, that was obviously from Bernie Sanders. What do you say? No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic. And of course, you know what? Good for Bernie Sanders for saying the quiet part out loud. Doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. Okay, it doesn't matter about what you actually believe. It doesn't matter what your ideals are. It doesn't matter actually what your topics are on your issues page. What matters is making sure you get the votes to win and then do whatever you want, which is what we've heard from politicians, by the way, for generations at this point, which is just placate your base, try to get people engaged. If you feel too radical on one side or the other, go out in the middle, lie to the American people. We're used to that. What we have with Bernie Sanders, actually, I'm saying, yeah, that's what she's doing. She's going in there and lying to the American people.
So what you should probably be looking at is the history of Kamala Harris as a politician and the policies that she held dear and advocated for and voted for in the Senate, and say that's probably the record that would happen in the White House, not what she says on the campaign trail, not what she says in interviews where she says she's changed her position, or now she's going to fund a border wall, or maybe she wants to eliminate tax on tips, all the things that she's plagiarizing from the Trump campaign. Maybe the real Kamala Harris is the one that was a prosecutor, that was a attorney general, that was a U.S. senator and vice president. Maybe when she's asked the question about, hey, would you support an embargo of arms on Israel? And she says, no, of course not. Israel has the right to defend herself, and we will stand strongly. Is she just saying what she feels like she needs to say to get elected? Because that's what Bernie Sanders seems to think. And maybe things like Medicare for All, so a complete single-payer healthcare system by the federal government. I don't believe that anymore. What Bernie Sanders just says, maybe she does, but she's just saying what it takes to get elected. Bernie Sanders is a very honest man. You can't say anything bad about his honesty. Maybe just
you can
his
disagree with
his policies. His policies you can vehemently disagree with, but he always tells the truth and is a straight shooter. I think that's why he appealed to so many apolitical people in 2020 that were like, well, maybe I'm not a socialist, but at least he's telling his truth.
Yeah.
Well, and he even tried to run again in 2020 against.
I remember with him and Trump, It almost appealed to the same person, not dissimilar than an RFK and Trump, which is they didn't line up very well on a lot of the issues, but they almost lined up on, or Tulsi, you could say, lined up on the idea of just telling people at least what they think, not necessarily what the party is making them think.
And there's something refreshing about that to the American people that are so sick and tired of lies and covering up who you really are as a politician just in order to get elected.
I think Israel's the big one that you can really see it because you can see the sway. You can see where they feel the public is at any given moment. So you can see a Harris administration saying, yes, of course, we're going to be pro-Israel day one. But then 6 months, if they feel like the social media sphere has shifted for them, they may move the target. They may move where it is. We've seen that now. If you even look at the way on her issues page they talk about Israel, a lot of it sure does talk about, we got to make sure the war in Gaza ends. We got to protect the Palestinian people. But it's pretty strong on language towards Israel. We've seen her do that now recently. That is not the case 6 months ago, a year ago. But what I feel like they did was their internal polling probably said the far fringe left of the anti-Israel movement is not the prevailing, even though they may be the loudest voice, they're not the prevailing voice. And we saw that even over the weekend. CNN had Dana Bash was out and she got an event where people are screaming in her face saying that she's like a warmongering Israel supporter. Most American people see that and they're not siding with the protester.
Right.
That's not how they feel. Mark Ruffalo, the actor, the Incredible Hulk, he put out a statement saying that the American that was killed, the hostage that was killed, would still be alive if it wasn't for Netanyahu and for the United States involvement in Israel. He had to then apologize, take that down, and start labeling Hamas a terrorist organization.
Right.
When you get Mark Ruffalo, who is maybe the most hardcore liberal, to the point where he's like one of the few that I'm a fan of his work, and it makes it harder and harder for me to even be able to separate because he gets so nasty. He did that and had to even back off. Why? Because his career was probably in jeopardy because most people didn't feel that way. Even if you are a Democrat, even if you are more on the left, you're not going, oh yeah, blame the hostages murder on the American people or on Israel.
And I think the Harris administration or the Harris campaign here has already figured out how to play that nuance, is that they are letting the principal candidate, Kamala Harris, be strong in favor of Israel, which is not something that you could historically say is the case for her. They're letting her be the face of that. But then you have Tim Walz doing the Michigan interview on public radio last week, where he used the opportunity of the Gaza war and the October 7th attack to say, now is a time we leverage our power against Israel to make them go towards a two-state solution. This is nothing about getting rid of Hamas and saying it needs to be different leadership. And then he also said, once again, and the people speaking out in Michigan, he was speaking to a Michigan audience, are speaking out for the right reasons. The people that are celebrating Hamas, calling for an embargo of arms against Israel, calling for from the river to the sea, the destruction of Israel, carrying Hamas flags, they're speaking out for the right reasons. So you see, from the same campaign, the principal and secondary candidate of this campaign have two vastly different views on the way that this should go. I think it gives them a way to play to the middle and potentially be able to pivot in 6 months' time when the winds of change were to sway a little bit, should they be elected. And I think that's a very dangerous situation if you're an Israel supporter, if you're a conservative, when you see things like that happen. But also, clever strategy. Put the issue page up today. So it takes away a debate prep line from the Trump campaign where they say, you won't even tell the American people what your policies are.
I hope his answer to that is, you put it up yesterday.
Right.
I do hope that's the thing, which is almost worse. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like the Harris administration or the Vice President Harris has done this over and over again, which is I'm not going to go to the border because people are telling me to go to the border. I'm not going to do an interview because they're trying to pressure me to do and then you finally do it and it almost feels like this awkwardness.
Right.
It's we're not going to put up a policy page. Well, we should probably do it before the debate. Well, when before the debate? I don't know, the day before. The only could be worse if it was put up an hour before. Because President Trump can now, I still think, use that and say, you waited until a day before a very well advertised moment. You've now been running for what? At this point, getting close to two months?
Yeah,
getting close to 2 months. We know your policies. You were the current sitting vice president.